This is a Fox 11 News special.
Hello there. Glad you could join us this evening. I'm Hugh Hefner, editor-publisher of Playboy magazine.
Simon says, be creative. Simon says, stop, Hef. Simon says, stop. Simon says, stop.
I'm out of the game.
Mr. Hefner, I know that you brought this legacy here from the 1970s all the way to LA. How does it feel to be in 2012 still going strong?
Well, it's nice to be alive.
Hugh Hefner, a name synonymous with Playboy, and many would consider him the luckiest guy on earth. Hefner was one of the original disruptors of our time, a visionary pioneer who broke the boundaries of sexuality, age, and gender. A genius entrepreneur who created a successful men's magazine during a time when people didn't even talk about sex. But Hefner says he's more than all of that.
We came here to do a special on Hugh Hefner.
Ah.
And funny you showed up.
Yes, you picked the right spot.
I was particularly interested in what motivated you early on in your life to be such an entrepreneur.
Well, I think that I was always interested in drawing cartoons, writing stories. I was doing that in grade school. A cartoon autobiography of my life when I was in high school that eventually morphed into the scrapbook, which I'm now in the Guinness Book of Records with the most scrapbooks of anybody.
It's the longest running scrapbook as well. We've been watching that evolve over the years. The fact that you turned a notion as a child into a business.
You're absolutely right. In other words, when I started the magazine, I had never worked in the editorial role. I worked for a promotion and circulation departments for magazines, including Esquire. But I had never worked editorially, professionally for anybody. But in the other sense, I'd been in rehearsal from at a very early age. And when I started Playboy, I felt as if I had come home. It was what I was meant to do.
It felt right?
Yes. And it utilized the talents that I had been honing from early on in terms of art and editorial and putting the whole package together.
Now, when I was a kid, I used to scribble a lot, draw cartoons and draw little stories. And my parents would say, you know what, that's great, but you need to be, you need to get serious with your life. Did your folks say the same thing to you?
No, but the opposite was also not true. In other words, they didn't particularly encourage me. They simply gave me a loving home. And the direction of my life was pretty well dictated by my own interests.
And how important was that loving home to you?
Well, I think that it was important, but more important perhaps than in the way that you were really asking, because although it was a loving home, there was no emotion in our home. My folks were Nebraska Methodists, and there was no hugging and kissing in my home. So I do think that had a lot to do with who I turned out to be. I think my ongoing quest for romantic love and romantic adventure is a response to the fact that there was not a lot of hugging in my home.
And so then that prompted a drive within you to move forward and to create something of substance. Were you surprised by the success you had early on?
Well, I had absolutely no idea. I started the magazine. I was working as the circulation director for children's activities, a children's magazine, and was in a less than happy marriage. And I really felt as if my life was going nowhere. High school, the last couple of years of high school were a grand adventure for me. I was the head of the student council and student court and a buddy of mine, and I did all kinds of extracurricular things in the school. And in December of 1952, we went back to a class reunion, and it reminded me of the dream is put aside. And I came back home, and I remember a specific day in December in which I stood on the Michigan Avenue Bridge and looked out at Lake Michigan and thought, is that all there is? I'm just going to be a variation on my parents and nothing more. And literally in the weeks that followed, in the early 1953, I started making plans for what turned out to be Playboy.
Next, more with Hef, and we meet his right-hand man.
Oh my goodness gracious!
His name is Playboy.
This is the thing about entrepreneurs, and whether it was in the 50s or today, your connection to entrepreneurism in its early stages, you have to take risks, you have to take a chance, and you have to believe in yourself, right? Those are the three things. Do you think you did that?
Yes, and obviously you have to have a certain amount of talent. And I think I was made for the job. Other people had put out low-end men's magazines, and what I had in mind was a dream for something different.
The general thrust of our move towards a less repressive society is a healthier attitude towards sex.
Esquire had been, for a time, a sophisticated urban men's magazine, and then changed during the war. They took the pin-up pictures out, and they took the cartoons out. And all the other men's magazines in that time frame, in the post-war period, were outdoor adventure books. And I was not interested in hunting alligators or shooting bears.
You were interested in indoor adventure groups.
I was an indoor urban fellow.
The minute I walked in that door at 232 East Ohio Street in Chicago, the glamour was right there. There was a Playmate at the front desk. I had a feeling, because it was a very exciting time, that Hef was really onto something. We had just hit 1 million circulation of the magazine, which is a good size circulation. Later we hit 7.5 million circulation. And there were all kinds of exciting things that were going on. And I would be sitting out there with other advertising salesmen from Collier's, from Look, from the Saturday Evening Post, from Time, from SI. I'd be the first one in that door because the account executive, for 10 minutes, wanted to talk about Hef, the Playmates, and everything Playboy. Well, he's a very worldly fellow. And even at his age, he's very au courant. He is still very much part of what is going on in the country and in the world, just as the company has become very international. I'm probably the oldest employee in the company in a couple of ways, second to only him.
Come on.
So I think I get him, although sometimes he can surprise you. But we're very simpatico, and I think we think very much alike. So I think we have a close bond.
You've had a lot of firsts. You've championed gay rights. You've put African Americans in your magazine. Tell me what motivates you. What drives you to do those things that are so pushing the boundaries? You know, now they call the people that created Facebook disruptors. These new entrepreneurs, they call them disruptors. You're the original disruptor.
Well, I think that, quite frankly, you don't really accomplish anything, and you certainly don't change anything if you don't take some chances and break some rules. You have to do it judiciously, and you have to do it with some care and concern. What I was interested in doing, quite frankly, was create a magazine that I really believed in, and that other people would identify with, men and women. It is interesting to note that although we had Marilyn Monroe in the very first issue, the concept was so strong that the second issue sold more than the first.
What was going on inside of you at that time? I mean, you were riding a wave there that you were the envy of every man in the world. Tell me about what that felt like inside of you.
Well, to do something that you really believe in, to make some difference, accomplish something, and be successful at it, there's really nothing more satisfying than that. It helps you establish a sense of personal identity, but it really makes you feel as if you're doing something worthwhile.
What drove you to be such a champion for civil rights and for openness in this area?
Well, it was the other half of what I was all about. The first few years, it was really just an entertainment magazine. But once we'd passed the million mark and we're really doing very well economically, I could afford to put on display the other half of what I was all about. And the other half of what Hugh Hefner is all about is social issues and changing the way of things that I felt were hurtful.
I climbed way up to the top.
Let's move forward to from Chicago to Los Angeles. Los Angeles became your home. Why did you come here? What was the reason for your move here? I know the answer, but I want you to tell me why was Los Angeles important to you?
Well, I think that, quite frankly, California and Los Angeles specifically is the other half of what Hugh Hefner is all about. I was raised in a Midwestern Protestant home, but in addition to family, the other major influence for me was the movies. My younger brother Keith and I grew up on those movies and those grand adventures. In that darkened theater, you could imagine being anybody, and that's what I did. So when I was able to, and the magazine was hugely successful, I was able to literally set my sights on Los Angeles and California, and eventually moved here. I was a fish out of water to some extent in Chicago. Chicago was a very Catholic and rather corrupt city, and it was not a natural fit for me or Playboy. But here, I was a kid coming home. I mean, when we started the first Playboy Club in Los Angeles, Tom Bradley, the mayor, showed up and was there. He and Jerry Brown, the governor, were regulars at the Playboy Mansion.
Coming up, what are Hef's two loves besides women? His passion for all things Hollywood runs deep. Hef has come to the rescue of the Hollywood sign not once, but twice.
And, you know, Mr. Hefner has a great history of many, many things that we don't hear of. Several years ago, when the Hollywood sign is destroyed by fire and flood and rain season, he, along with Gene Autry, Alice Cooper, and others, each put up $27,000 to restore the sign.
I think that saving the Hollywood sign was a way of saying thank you for all that Hollywood has meant to me.
Hugh Hefner coming in at the end and putting us over the top was just thrilling.
What does that tell you about him?
He strikes a chord. He is an iconic figure in the United States, in American culture.
When I went to Mr. Hefner's house to thank him, I gave him a big picture of this mountain. But I hid it behind me, and the first thing I said to him, I said, I took a chance here, and I know some of those nuns down at the Monastery of the Angel may be mad at me, but I said to Mr. Hefner, I said, there's nothing better than a picture of a beautiful naked woman. And he smiled. And then I said, there's nothing better than a picture of a beautiful naked mountain. This mountain in the heart of the city that people look up to, there's nothing here. There's the sign, and it's theirs now, and they could hike it, they could walk it, they could get to nature. Remember the drifters? You know, when this whole world starts getting me down and people are much too much for me to face, I climb way up on the top of the world and all my cares just drift right into space.
When this old world starts getting me down and people are just too much for me to face, I climb way up to the top of the stairs and all my cares just drift right
The first time back in in the latter 1970s, the sign was falling apart, and I could not believe that the studios and the other inhabitants of this city would ignore it. Because for me, quite frankly, and I said at the time, I think the Hollywood sign is our Eiffel Tower. And it means that and a good deal more to most of the people around the world. It is a sign of dreams. And that's what life is all about, dreams.
But in your dreams, whatever they be, dream a little dream of me. Play it, Sam.
You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh.
I was at the Playboy Jazz Festival over the weekend, and you've done an awful lot for musicians. Why does that mean so much to you?
Well, again, it's the stuff the source of the dreams that I grew up on. I'm a romantic, and the music in the background always for me was jazz. The popular music when I was a kid was going up with jazz and you know, Gershwin and Irving Berlin and Cole Porter, and we played a lot of Bix Beiderbecke here and Louis Armstrong.
But the jazz musicians love it because they rarely get an opportunity to showcase their talent, and you give them that venue. That's a terrific thing that you do for them, and I know they appreciate that. But it's more than that. It's a party when we go to the jazz festival. Just about everything you do is a party, right?
Yes, exactly so. I think that's part of the theme. In other words, if you're going to define what Playboy is really all about, it's a party. I mean, how you respond to conservative repression, I would say, throw a party.
When it came to 1979, which was the 25th anniversary of the company, we decided that it was time to celebrate that by going back to a jazz festival in the Hollywood Bowl, which I had felt at the time, and it's only been confirmed for me, it is the greatest outdoor venue in the world. I honestly can't think of another one. I know a lot of other venues, but there's nothing like the Hollywood Bowl. Bill Cosby has been our MC for most of those years, every year, but two when he was doing a film. He's had a ball doing it. It's really the first large jazz festival in the world of the season. So a lot of artists break their material in. Sometimes you hold your breath, but usually it works out just ducky. Yeah. Everybody wants to work the festival. We've had most of the big names in jazz, and it is a real party for Los Angeles.
When we come back, advice from Hef and a few laughs. You've given gifts to USC and UCLA to continue to save some of the best works from the past. Tell me the reasons. It's good citizenship and it makes good business sense, but what's behind that? Why do you do that?
Well, it is my way, in other words, supporting film preservation and a film censorship class at USC and things of that kind are a way of paying back what the movies have meant to me growing up.
And that's the future, right?
The way of saying thank you and passing my dreams on to the next generation.
What motivates you every day?
Well, because I think my work is a labor of love. I obviously, I'm 86 years old. I could have retired a long time ago. I certainly don't do it for the money. It is simply a passion. It is something that I enjoy. It helps me identify who I am.
If you had something to say to young people today, what would it be?
Hold on to your dreams. That's what it's all about. I think that when you are growing up, there are a lot of pressures, peer pressures, family, society, that would prompt you to compromise. But I think that those first dreams should be embraced and pursued.
What is your favorite secret LA spot?
At the Grotto.
Well, that was an easy answer.
Okay. Yes, my favorite place in LA is the Mansion.
And I think I can see why. Is Hugh Hefner a happy guy?
Hugh Hefner is one of the happiest guys on the planet, and if he isn't, shame on him.
The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine? The best is yet to come the day you're mine.
Thank you, baby.